Hi, welcome back. My name is Carol. I'm the service manager for Parents in Mind. This is episode 2 of our podcast. And our podcast is for parents who are going through the challenges of being pregnant and raising a newborn up to 2 years old. So it's really focused on supporting parents in mental health in a variety of ways. And it's not just what we do with groups, one-to-one and with peer support, but we also work with other services, and one of them being Talking Therapies, who we are going to have on later on. We're going to have Ruhma alongside Imran hosting as well.
Hello everybody, it's Imran here from the Parents in Mind Dad's Project in Newham.
So we've asked Ruhma, who is a psychological wellbeing practitioner manager of a talking therapy service in Newham, and that's just to talk about all the different options there is for supporting your mental health. You may have heard this term used quite a lot, so cognitive behaviour therapy, especially if you're dealing with mental health challenges or supporting someone with that. So we're going to be talking a little bit more about what that means and how we can support parents who in accessing that through our service, or how the use of Parents in Mind really fits in with this form of therapy. We do have many parents who've been offered cognitive behaviour therapy, CBT, and they're really unsure of it or how to access the service. Or sometimes we signpost mums, parents, after discussing of like how they feel and what they might need or want.
We have Ruhma here.
Hi, nice to meet you. My name is Ruhma Aboobakar. I'm a psychological wellbeing practitioner manager at Newham Talking Therapies, and I've been there for about 5 years now. Thank you for having me here today. For those of you who don't know what Talking Therapies is, it came about in around 2008 to 2010. And Newham was actually one of the pilot sites to pilot talking therapy. So I'm extremely lucky to be working here at one of the original talking therapy services. The idea of talking therapies came about to make mental health support more accessible to people who are experiencing things like depression and anxiety. Prior to this, you would need to have either spoken to your GP and got support from them, or then have been severe enough to see a psychiatrist. But of course, that leaves a vast majority of people falling in between who are still requiring that support for those everyday mental health difficulties, such as low mood and different types of anxieties.
So if I was a new parent and I was feeling low, why would I pick up the phone, or how would I access your service? And can you just tell me a little bit more about it?
Yeah, absolutely. So depending on what you're comfortable with, we do have quite a few different ways that you can refer to our service. Largely, we operate on a self-referral level. So you can just pick up the phone and speak to one of our admin staff who can get you registered and booked in. You can also refer online. We have a really straightforward referral form that once you send that off to us, again, one of our team will pick that up and then get in contact with you to book you in. You can also speak to your GP and they can refer you to us as well. But I would really encourage self-referrals. I think that's probably one of the quickest way to access our service.
See, as a new parent, I'll be a little bit scared to pick up the phone and tell some strange person my whole life story.
Yeah.
What would you say to someone like me?
Yeah, absolutely. I can completely understand some of the anxieties that you might have around referring. You don't know who you're speaking to over the phone. You don't quite know what they're going to ask you. In terms of our service, so everything that you do speak to us about is confidential. That is, of course, with a caveat, and unless there's any concerns about you or someone else, but otherwise the service is confidential. Whatever you speak to us about is stored on our secure system, so your GP, your workplace, no one else would have access to anything like that. When you do refer, you will be offered an assessment, and that will be with a trained therapist. So often you will get to speak to a psychological wellbeing practitioner, and they've had specific training to work with people experiencing things like low mood and anxiety. Part of their training also covers those really key interpersonal skills like empathy, building a rapport with you, listening to you, and validating your experiences. And I think a lot of those things can make it easier for people to open up and speak to us about what they're going through.
With Parents in Mind, I suppose some of the parents who come, not everybody needs structured therapy. And in our sessions that we offer, it is based on some of the things you've mentioned. So within our sessions, there is a space for parents to talk about their experience and it gives them a chance to challenge some of their thinking. So even reflect on their own language that they use about themselves, that self-talk really can start to encourage that promotion for positive mental well-being. And one of the things that we offer that, again, links in a lot with what you mentioned around the behaviours, is walk and talk groups. And with the groups that we offer with different times during the week, I know it can be quite hard to actually get started. You talk about the motivation. It sounds kind of easy to, okay, let's break it down, but just actually organising yourself, especially if it's a new parent or this is the second kid, third kid, just organising yourself to get out the house can be so difficult. So with our support, breaking that down, encouraging on the other side, and having a range of options around Newham can really help parents feel encouraged that, okay, maybe if it wasn't today, then it can be tomorrow. And I think that's one of the things that we hear quite a lot from parents.
Yeah, absolutely. I think something that we've noticed people really struggle with is perhaps making those changes that we might suggest in the sessions. And one thing that we found can be really beneficial is that support. So if they have someone who is supporting them in being able to make those changes. So an example might be, if I'm seeing someone for a session and that week I've suggested perhaps a change that you could make is to go for a walk, and they're really feeling like, oh my gosh, I don't know how I'm going to get out the house with my baby. How am I going to get ready, bring myself to do that? But actually they decided, hey, I'm going to join in on one of your walking groups or something. That would probably increase the chances of them making that change. They've got other people that they're doing it with. They've also got someone to hold them accountable, which can be quite useful and a motivator in itself.
And the peer supporters really do have that lived experience, so they understand, as you mentioned, what it's like just to deal with those challenges. There was one more that I hear quite often for people in terms of accessing services. And one of the things that we hear often from parents is they need that support emotionally, but they just want a range of therapeutic means to support them. And I suppose the good thing about having your service working alongside our service is that there's options. There's options to work with someone one-to-one. There's options to have a group where maybe you've come to our group for coffee and a chat. You don't have to talk. You can observe other people. There's also that online support you've mentioned, and we also have the WhatsApp, which people often learn from just hearing other people's experience, and it's been normalized. So there is a lot of power in that support, in that community, not feeling alone.
Yeah, it sounds like working together can really help make a personalized experience for someone, which I think is really important. Not every parent will be going through the same difficulties, and so where they do have a variety of choices, both at Newham Talking Therapies and Parents in Mind, it sounds like we can really create a bespoke package for them.
A lot of the times with the parents that we see on a day-to-day basis, they often feel stuck in a rut with their thinking, their behavior, even their emotions. Can you just tell us a bit more about this, and is this normal?
Yeah, absolutely. So what you're describing is something we call the vicious cycle, which is a term that you might come across in cognitive behavioral therapy principles. So in very basic terms, it's the idea that how we feel is influenced by what we do and the way that we think. So a lot of the time we might notice when we are feeling quite low, we might experience physical symptoms. This could be feeling tired a lot of the time, lacking in energy, perhaps sleep is disrupted, appetite is disrupted. A lot of those challenges come with being a new parent, that a lot of those things will naturally be influenced by the nature of having to take care of a young child. That can contribute to low mood, and that can start to perhaps impact what you do or the way that you think. So if you are feeling particularly tired, your sleep is disrupted, you might want to avoid perhaps certain things, maybe meeting family members, or perhaps avoiding doing the things that you might usually do during the day. And a lot of that then might come with some negative thoughts. So we notice a lot of self-blame, perhaps thoughts around not being a good parent, having that lack of motivation. I can't be bothered, or what's the point? Which a lot of the time is very normal, and there's obviously been a huge change to your life and a huge change to your routine. I guess the difficulty is when you notice that that starts becoming a little bit of a habit, that is something that's continued for weeks to maybe a month or so, that perhaps you're on more of a regular basis declining those invitations, declining doing things, not engaging in things that you enjoy, perhaps feeling a bit disconnected from your baby even. Often that in itself can become a bit of a vicious cycle, the idea that the more we might decline or withdraw from those experiences, there is less opportunity for us to have those positive interactions that we might have with people. There's often a lot more time that might be spent thinking in a negative way. And so that can become a little bit of a cycle and keep the low mood going. I guess I just want to say that a lot of the things that perhaps we do when we're feeling low are perhaps recommended to us by other people, or something that feels quite normal to do. So when you're feeling sick, what's the advice that you're given? It's usually, why don't you rest or take a nap or something like that. And absolutely, that's really helpful in the short term. But actually, if that's repeated over a longer period of time, and that becomes a bit of a pattern, that can actually be a contributing factor to the low mood in the long term, where continuously we're avoiding those things that perhaps we would be doing. We're not engaging in our hobbies. We're not getting that sense of achievement from anything. And that is a big factor in what can keep the low mood a problem over time.
So everything that you have just spoken about, as a new parent, how can I implement this in my life?
Yeah, I mean, the good thing about seeking talking therapies is that that's not something that you'll be doing by yourself. It is very much with the support of a therapist who will often see you or speak to you on a weekly basis, and try to help you to break or come out of that vicious cycle that we've just described. Part of your sessions will involve understanding what your cycle looks like and where might it be easy for you to intervene. Very commonly, that's at a behavioral level. So what we notice is it's a lot easier to perhaps act your way out of the low mood than to think your way out of it. It's also something where the changes that are made are collaborative, things that you want to do, not what the therapist would like you to do, and that it's at a pace that suits you. So it's very gradual, and we make sure that it is something that you are really wanting to engage with at the same time. A way in which, as I mentioned, we might suggest breaking the cycle is at a behavioral level. So this is very much changing what we do to try to bring a change in how we feel. So with the cycle that I described earlier, with perhaps a new parent, their routine is upside down. Perhaps they're avoiding seeing people or even doing those things that they used to do for themselves. And that's a key part in making them feel low. Even making a small change, like, for example, perhaps before they used to go and get their nails done, doing something like that as a bit of a self-care activity, or if that's something that they're unable to do, even doing something like that at home, is in itself a change to that normal avoidance pattern that you might notice. That's going to give you that sense of achievement, make you feel good, and hopefully give you that motivation to try to then continue with those other things that you're needing to do. There is a concept in CBT that we talk about, which is outside in. So a lot of the time we notice that when we're feeling low in mood, a lot of what we do is dictated by how we feel. So if I feel like doing this, I'll do it. If I don't feel like doing this, I won't do it. The problem with when you're feeling low is a lot of the time you don't feel like doing things, so then we just don't do them. And so part of what the therapist will support you with is trying to act outside in. So following the plan and not the mood. Even if you don't feel like doing it, let's just push ourselves and do it, even if it's for 5 minutes, so that we can then have that sense of achievement. We've done something. That's where the motivation comes from. A lot of people will often say, but I'm just not motivated, and that they'll be waiting to feel motivated. If we're waiting for motivation, we can be waiting forever. And a lot of the time, it's having to just do that thing, even though you didn't feel like doing it, for the sake of doing it, which is then going to help you feel better in the long term.
So with parents in mind, say it's an informal way of supporting people's mental health. Can you tell me a little bit more about how you see that fitting in with your service?
Yeah, absolutely. I think where we only see people once a week for maybe half an hour to 1 hour, there is, of course, a large majority of time that we're not seeing them, we're not speaking to them. And that's where it's really, really important for them to have that support in order to help to make those changes that perhaps we've suggested within the therapy. I remember you've mentioned that a lot of your support workers also have lived experience. Is that right?
Yeah, they're peer volunteers. They're trained and they have those lived experience and they get a chance to reflect on that and support others.
Yeah, I think that's so useful and so important to have, I think, for people to be able to speak to someone who's perhaps been through similar things, to have that experience normalized, to really have someone understand perhaps where they're coming from. I think that can be really beneficial and a really nice contributing factor to the therapy, and might really help them engage in making some of those positive changes to try to change how they feel. I think another thing that we really emphasize with CBT or cognitive behavioral therapy is the idea that it is a long-term solution, you could say. So a lot of the time, what we're doing in our work with our service users is empowering them to learn those skills to try to manage their own difficulties. And I think where we are looking at the long-term picture, for them to have that support to fall back on, or to have that long-term support maybe after the sessions have finished, sounds like that would be really useful for them to engage in with your service as well.
Definitely. And with both service, the mom and dads, they can access up to 2 years or up to till the child is 2. So we often get moms birthing people who are pregnant, have the baby, have that support for 2 years. They can stay for that length of time.
Yeah, that sounds super important, where our therapy is, I guess, quite short term, for them to be able to have someone to follow up with them or to still have that support up to 2 years sounds absolutely fantastic.
So I would say therapy is not for everyone. Some people don't feel comfortable speaking to a stranger. So what would you suggest for them to do at home?
Yeah, I think there's a few different things. I think one, to make sure that social support is there. I think being a new parent can be very isolating, and to have that support network there would be really important. I think not neglecting the self-care side of things is probably something that I would really stress. You know, there's the saying of, when you're in an airplane, put your own oxygen mask on before you put somebody else's. And I think this idea that new parents might struggle with, it's all about the baby, absolutely, but the care for the baby is only going to be as good as perhaps the care that you have for yourselves. Making sure that you do have that self-care, that time for yourself, so that you are mentally in a good space to then take care of this little one who's come along.
We've come to the end of episode 2 and hope this has helped you see there's a different range of support. Thank you, Ruhma, and thank you, Imran.
Thank you for having me.
So see you guys for the next episode 3. See you next time.